So welcome to our Saturday speaker group. I'd like to welcome Herb and Joanne Hein. Herb and Joanne Hein have founded the Hein Speech Language Pathology practice, and they may say some more things about themselves, but they are very well known in the brain injury community in San Diego. Decades of experience, in our world. Today's topic is practical cognitive strategies for brain injury survivors. I think that there's going to be some great information shared for everybody today. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Herb and Joanne Hein. Thanks for joining us today. If you could all keep yourselves muted, please, during the presentation. I will as well. You can hear a plane. There we go. You might be able to hear that. If you could keep yourselves muted during the presentation, we will have time for Q&A, for questions at the end of the presentation, of course. If you have something you'd like to jump in and a question you'd like to ask during the presentation, you can raise your hand and I'll try and call on you. You could raise your hand digitally or just raise your hand like this, okay? But again, we will have time to ask questions at the end. And so maybe if you have a question on your mind, write that down and we'll ask those at the end. So without further ado, let's get started. Welcome, Herb and Joanne Hein. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. I like your strategy to write things down. I think we're going to hear that a couple of times this morning. So great intro there. Thank you very much, Kurt. I'm Joanne Hein, in case you couldn't tell the Herb from the Joanne. And yes, both of us were on the founding board of directors of the Brain Injury Foundation back when it was the Head Injury Foundation. And that was in the mid-'80s. And we've been in private practice for quite a long time, the decades, Kurt was not kidding, over 4 decades. And I work with adults and with children, but adults with stroke and brain injury are certainly a very big and important part of who I work with. Now we're working on Zoom, but here we still are. We've developed a lot of strategies over the year and hope to share some of them with you today. Now I'm going to hand it to Herb.
Very good. Well, I am Herb Hein, and we'll see if this Zoom switches to my face or not. Perhaps it will. I am Herb Hein, like I said, and I have been a speech-language pathologist for over 40 years, and I have been working in schools, and I've been working in hospitals, and locally, I had been working for Sharp Hospital, and I was working for the community reentry program, and that's where I was working along with our team to be very functional in terms of what were the strategies that helped people to be successful in their home, and what helped people to be successful at work or in the community, or doing anything that they wanted to do in their lives. So those are some of the strategies that we'll be talking about today. I've been sharing those in my treatments, not only when I was working in the hospital programs, but also in our private practice. And then I'm going to stop sharing that for a second so I can show you this. Can you all see this? Joanne, yes?
Yes.
Good. So this is Strategy Power. This is a book that I wrote a few years ago, and I will be using some of the pages from this, and some of these pages, and these will be available also to you on our website. So that's another resource if you're interested in having a book that will be talking about assertive listening skills, so that if I'm talking too fast, you ask me to slow down. If you are writing things down, which I hope you are for remembering things in conversations, then you can ask me how to spell and those kinds of things. So it works on those kinds of functional strategies.
And we've got some of those in our library too, Herb. You gave me a box of those. So if anybody wants, I have a limited number of copies of those. So Herb, if you don't mind, if someone grabs one of those from our library, just send me an email and we can hook you up as well.
We are happy to supply you with many more, and
Okay.
at no cost to anyone.
Oh, thank you. Thank
We
you.
hope that
Shall we go to our Shall we
so
go to our PowerPoint now?
that will be useful. And also, you may recognize me if you were at any of the fundraisers and the friend raisers in the past, where I sang and entertained, and so those were good memories for us to be there at the friend raiser. Okay, so here we go. We are going to start off with our presentation.
I'm sure you're all really well aware of the cognitive challenges you and your loved ones are experiencing after stroke or brain injury. Very simply put, cognitive skills are thinking skills. And we're going to kind of outline for you a hierarchy of those thinking skills, which might be a refresher course for you, or might be new and exciting and illuminating for some of you. So here are some of the skills. We have another slide with another set of them. First, we have attention. It is hopefully what you're doing right now, paying attention, putting your eyes and ears on one thing at a time. So the next one I'll talk about these two together actually. Selective attention is a fancy phrase for concentration. So I'm paying attention, I'm reading my professional journal, and I'm reading this article, and I get to the bottom of the page. I have no idea what I just read. My attention was on the task, reading that article. My selective attention, that fine tuning, was somewhere else, who knows where. That's certainly a very quick slippage that a lot of people experience after stroke and brain injury and other neurological events. So you want to really be tuning into where those short circuits are occurring in that selective attention. After we're paying attention and we're paying concentration, selective attention, next is discrimination. They all kind of tie in with each other a bit too. Discrimination is, in a nice way, is sorting out. Here's what I need to pay attention to. Here's the background noise, and I need to be very careful. I will tell clients, even kids sometimes, put that on the back burner, so that you can focus on whatever it is you're really supposed to be doing in front of you. From there, when we've sorted things out, we go to the next one, which is memory storage. And you'll see a little file cabinet of sorts on the side in the little illustration there. And memory storage is working on being more careful to put your thoughts, to put what you want to put, the information you're learning, in the right box in your brain. So that's storing the information, and we store immediately. If we work with it for a while, it's going to be short term. And then if we keep practicing with that activity or that strategy, it will go to our longer term memory, and that will be a great thing. It'll be part of us then. And the last one on this screen is memory retrieval, where you'll see a little fishing rod. And we want to think about going into that brain and pulling out the information we want. And of course, as speech language pathologists, we work with people a lot on how to retrieve. Do we need to picture? Do we need to think of the categories? Do we need to go through the alphabet ABC to retrieve someone's name? I would be using that strategy a lot. And let's go to our next slide. Some more of the cognitive skills include then, and these are in order, so from that attention and that selective attention, sequential organization, sequence, putting things in order. First I'm doing this, then I'm doing that, then I'm doing this. I'm telling a story, or I'm telling a joke, let's say, not from the punchline, but I better start it from the setup at the beginning. And we want to be working on being very careful to put activities in order and what we say in order too. From there, we go on to the higher level cognitive skills, association. Oh, that reminds me of this other person. I can remember that guy's name, Joseph, because I knew this other Joseph and he kind of reminds me of him. That's an association. Integration is putting all that information together in our brain so we can make good sense of it. Next is analysis and synthesis. Analysis is breaking stuff down. Here's a task. This is overwhelming for me. Oh, let me analyze it into the component parts. First, there's this piece and the other piece. Synthesis is then putting things back together again and probably drawing some new conclusions about it. last two that we have here, flexible problem solving. It's very challenging to think in a different way when you have one thought or one solution to a problem, and working towards those higher level cognitive skills where if plan A doesn't work, we can go to plan B or C or XYZ. So being flexible, and also being flexible to take in what other people say so that we're really using the feedback from family, friends, community, whoever we're in contact with these days. Lastly, generalization. This is a very tough one for people who have had neurological issues in their brain events, brain injury, and I know it's just, you know, that's one title for what many of you are struggling with. Generalization is taking what you know and applying it to new situations out in the world. So, okay, I make a list to go to the grocery store, but now I have to go to Home Depot. I better make a list too. I'm going to generalize that skill to another area. Okay.
All right, well, there is another area that involves cognitive skills, and that is executive functioning. We have our frontal lobe. So the frontal lobe is in the very front of our head, the very front of our brain, and that is the boss of our brain. That is the part that helps us to regulate what we're doing, plan what we're doing, and actually doing it. So that is a very important skill that we're going to be talking about. There are many executive functions. The first one that we'll mention is initiation. So I can say, I'm going to go do this thing, but if I don't get out of my chair, I'm not initiating. So we have to find ways to actually do what we say we're going to do, whether it's something simple or something more complicated. Another very important executive function is to control our impulses. So I want to be able to think first before I do something. I have to make sure that I don't just say whatever's on my mind. I have to look around and see would it be appropriate. I have to think first before acting, and that is a very important part of our frontal lobe functioning. We also want to think about vigilance, and vigilance is that, can I continue to pay attention to something? Can I continue to do something? So all of you out there are exhibiting vigilance in listening to me talking and listening to Joanne talking. So that is something that we have to consciously think about. And we'll talk about that. What am I paying attention to? And can I keep my attention? Can I have the vigilance for that? Joanne?
Yes, sir. Some of the other higher level kind of executive functions involve having insight. Do I understand what my situation is? Do I understand what's a little more difficult for me to do? If I'm having problems with my walking and I see that there's a high curb coming up, I'm going to have to exercise some understanding of myself and judgment of the situation, probably taking that into account in a very short period of time as I approach that curb. And then I'm going to handle maybe more slowing down and more carefully stepping off that curb.
Something else that we'll be talking about today, and that is very important, that is one of our executive functioning skills, is time management. And that is where we will know the things we need to do today, and then we will be able to chop up our day so that we will know how much time we're going to be spending on each activity. Do we know that there's something else that we need to do afterwards? So we need to stop one activity to do another. So can we manage our time is a very important skill. And then this part, self-monitoring, is really critical. And that is something that I've worked with a lot of folks on being able to develop that skill. If we do not have self-monitoring, we can't really improve ourselves in any way. So can I be aware of how I'm acting? Can I be aware of that? And can I then make some changes in how I'm acting based upon what I'm noticing about myself? There also
I'd
is,
like to add to self-monitoring without cutting you off too badly there. Another aspect, we have to self-monitor everything we do. If it's keeping our balance, if it's speaking, if we're trying to pronounce words that are harder to pronounce, we have to be able to, we have our plan in our head, we have to be able to listen to ourselves, we have to see if we hit that target, and if not, we're going to want to self-correct. So self-monitoring goes hands in hand with self-correcting.
that is right. And then we want to be able to follow through. So that was, that is what would be the end result. We have all of these things that we want to do. Can we actually do them? Can we get up out of our chair and go and do them? And then can we come back and come back to our chair, wherever that place is, so that we can reflect and say, what can we do better, or applaud ourselves for actually accomplishing that too. And that's also very important, that we don't want to beat ourselves up for not having been perfect every time we tried, that we tried, yay, and that we might have done something better. That's an extra bonus.
Okay, well, this is a really important concept that I talk about a lot with my clients. And so the slide says, get to know the new you. This is super important. We have the old me, how things operated before the injury. And perhaps it was being able to do things, multiple things at once, do multitasking, being able to go to the store and remember everything on the list and stick with it from what we have in our head, and also to be able to think fast and talk fast. So now things might not operate that way in your operating system, and we may have to be really vigilant, talking about that word in executive skills, about respecting who the new me is and what the new me can do with some modifications. So how do we help that new me to succeed? Very often, if you stick with that old me, and I went to the store and I didn't bring my list because I never need to write things down, the old me says, and the old me is still in there saying these things. So this is where we really have to rebalance things in terms of our thought processes and our insight, another executive thing we were talking about, into ourselves. So you go to the store, maybe you remembered one of the things on the list. You come home and there's no milk, there's no bread, there's no whatever it is that you were planning on getting at the store. So you come home, you did it your old way. That felt like the old me. Yay, I wasn't really successful, and it really doesn't feel good. So now what do? Well, you have a little conversation between the old me and the new me, and the new me says, I got to go get a list. Okay, I'm going to write the list. I'm going to follow it when I'm at the store. I'm going to check things off. I come home, the milk's there, the bread's there, the impulse buys are not there as much, and you've been successful. And if you have a partner, a roommate, a spouse, a friend who is with you, you get to show them that you were able to be successful. It's different. It might not feel as satisfying at first, but that success is the sweet part. Okay, along with the old me and the new me, different way to think about it, but a very critical way to kind of get it into your thoughts. Being automatic, on autopilot, is kind of acting without thinking and just doing. So it might be driving a car, it might be brushing your teeth, and in the pre-injury days, it would have been a lot easier perhaps to do more things on autopilot. Now that new me needs to be deliberate. Whoop, check that out. And being deliberate means taking care of each step that you are doing. So it's one example that I like to use, and it's recent from our COVID days of quarantine and things we do differently at home now. We started baking bread, Herb and I, that guy. And I'm not a bread baker, I'm a cook. I can throw anything together, but baking is a science and you have to follow a recipe if you're going to get a result. So instead of being autopilot when I'm cooking and throwing things in the pan, we together had to learn to be very deliberate. So we write down the recipe. If we make changes, we write them down and follow it to a T. Being deliberate, do not leave out any steps. And we're going to talk a bunch about that today. So the first few times we baked bread, we didn't know what we were doing. And we got bread, but it was not the best result. Now we are bread baking rock stars. What do? Are we automatic about it? Oh no, this is 6 months later. We are following that recipe line by line every single time. We're not quite at that automatic level yet, and it's okay because we have our strategy and we have our recipe, and you'll find there are recipes for many things you want to do in life to be able to be consistent, successful, and deliberate every time.
So here are some steps for being more deliberate, and this is information that's on the handout as well, so you can refer to this later on. So we want to pick one thing to get better at. So many of us will I want to get better at 4 things. I want to do it all. Pick one thing, and we can focus on one thing, and we can stop and think about what we're doing when we're doing that one activity, okay? And then we want to set up a plan for that activity. So that takes time. And then we want to actually do it. That's that initiation. Again, let's just do it, okay? And then we'll check off each step. And that also is critical. In terms of memory functioning, I want to remember also, did I do that step? And I will check off right when I do that step. Then in terms of self-monitoring and self-correcting, if something is missing, we're going to fix it. We're not going to beat ourselves up. If something went wrong, we'll say, what did we do that wasn't quite right? Let me fix it so that I could do it differently the next time. So, and the thing is also, number 6 here on the screen is try the plan for 1 week. So do the same thing if it's a daily activity, or if we're trying to do something and get it better and better, we want to practice it, okay? And we'll do it slowly, and we'll really do it the same way each time. We'll see if we can be consistent. And then we'll evaluate the results. We'll see what worked or what did not work. Again, that's self-monitoring, that self-assessment, and the self-correction, so we can do something better. And if something did not work, we're going to change the plan if the first one didn't work correctly. Okay, so that is something that we can do with a complicated task. We can also do it with a simpler task, like brushing our teeth. Okay, saying, did I brush the top? Did I brush the bottom? What did I do? So something like that could be set up. A step-by-step checklist can be set up on the bathroom mirror or on the wall, so that we get the toothbrush wet and we put on the toothbrush and brush the top right teeth and brush the top left teeth and the bottom left teeth, etc. So we do it for a simple task like that, or like Joanne was saying, baking bread.
Here's a really critical concept, and I'm sure that many, if not all of us, experience this, and certainly after brain injury, it is almost the hallmark of brain injury, and that is overload. Overload means your senses, whether it's listening to us, whether it's looking at something, working on the computer for hour after hour, if it's physical, sensory, if you're in a windy place or a cold place. Too much of one thing, too much of a good thing can overload your brain. That may make you shut down, might make you fall asleep, might make you feel like you're bored. And I work with a lot of students who feel, oh, I was bored in class. They were probably overloaded. You might be getting overloaded by us, but hopefully the illustrations will keep you around with us. So we like to make an analogy between the sponge and your brain. Sorry if that's not a good one. Don't be insulted by it. So if you are cleaning up somewhere and you put water in the sponge, and the water's going in and in and in, eventually it's going to be saturated and the rest of the water is going to run off. Herb, you can go to the next slide. Thank you. Okay, so here we have the faucet on one side, the water's going in, it's saturated, the water's dripping out. So that's kind of like what happens in our brain where too much information is coming in. And over on the right side here where the brain is with all the words around it, it could be I'm writing for too long. There's too much sensory stuff. I'm worried about too much. Just the different things, even music, if it's coming too loud or too much or too fast, is going to overload. And different people will get overloaded by different things. So back to the bottom where the sponge is, what do we do when that sponge is saturated and overloaded? We squeeze it out, fill it with clean water, get back to cleaning. What do we do in our brain? Well, we're hopefully not really squeezing our brain, but what we want to do is we want to change our activity so that we give our brain a chance to kind of chill down and absorb some of the information that was starting to wash over us a little bit more than we wanted. So if you're reading, do something physical. Be really aware of what modality, if it's listening or something physical or visual or on the computer that you're doing, shift your activity. Go out and water your garden, go pet your dog, go take a nap, go close your eyes for a few minutes and meditate. Whatever it is that clears out those channels so that then you can come back refreshed, not overloaded. You may find that if you've taken a little break and you come back, you can't work as long as the first time, but let's look at the success of how much more you can fit in when you change your activities so that you can reduce that overload. So now Herb is going to deftly switch screens and go to our handout. And again, there will be a link to that handout. It's in the chat. And it also will be on our website so that you can download that handout and see pretty much a little more detail of what we've been talking about today. So hopefully Herb has it. Voila.
There we go. So actually, before I continue, I would like for you all to take a break and think about any of the things that we've said, and if you have a paper and pencil or whatever you're using, see if you have a question you want to ask us, if there's something you want to remember at this point. I'm just going to give 20 seconds as an example of what we do to actually give ourselves a break. Okay, so write something down, write down a question. So when we're done with this in a few minutes, you can then ask your question. Okay, so what we're going to talk about now is we're going to talk about some strategies for attention and concentration. And we broke up these cognitive skills into these categories, but many of them are overlapping. But this was just one way for us to be able to break down some of these. So first we want to be able to tell ourselves what we're paying attention to. That may seem silly, but it is really critical. Say, I am listening to this guy, Herb Hein, talking to me about attention. We may really want to be that deliberate with what we're wanting to focus on. I am really wanting to focus on what my wife is talking about right now. Okay, if you're in a relationship with someone, if you're talking to your mother, you're talking to your son, you're talking to whoever, okay, the person on the phone, I'm paying attention. Okay, I am reducing my distractions too. Is the TV on? Is there music that's too loud? Are there other people around in that room? Should I go to a place that's more quiet? Okay, so that I can attend and pay attention. If I start to lose my focus, then I want to be aware, oops, I just started to drift in my mind, okay? I have to be aware of that and say, hold on a minute, wait, I just need a quick moment. Okay, we were talking about attention and concentration. Yes, we were talking about attention and concentration. And I'll bring back to where I was, what we were focusing on. And I can hopefully talk that way with the people in my life. So there is the person who is working on these strategies, and then there's a person who is living with that person, working with that person. It is a team operation, okay? So we want not only for you, if you are a brain injury survivor, to use strategies, but we want anyone around you to be doing these same kinds of things. If you lose your focus, they will help you, bring you back to where you were, okay? What we just talked about is taking a short break, doing something different for a while. Like Joanne said, if our brain has gotten full, for me, I take a breath or two or three. We can drink a glass of water, which is good for our brain too, to be hydrated, okay? And then we return to the task. And that is often, and if we're having trouble with our memory, what were we just doing? So it may be that we can write down on some little yellow stickies or on our daily schedule or on our weekly schedule. What is it that we were really trying to accomplish so that we can return to that, okay? We're gonna return to the task. And then if we found that we started to lose our attention in 30 seconds, perhaps next time we're gonna see if we can pay attention for 35 seconds or 40 seconds, right? We're going to be realistic with expanding our skills and being realistic about that. Okay, so now another area is memory and retention. So what I'm talking about here a lot is writing. I believe in old school pens, pencils, paper. I believe that it is useful to have a paper brain, okay? I have a weekly schedule. I cannot do the things I need to do in my day if I don't have my weekly schedule. I will write down things I need to do professionally. I will write down the things I need to do for chores. I will write down the thoughts that I had that I want to remember, okay? That is the most important memory strategy that I can think about. It is the one that I use and the one that I recommend. So
let me add just a little thing here on that. A lot of people, of course, also or exclusively use their computer calendar, use their phone, their iPad, and so forth. And electronics, you know, of course, it's so much a part of our lives, and it's very helpful. And there are alarms and so forth that really make that very useful. However, this little box does not remind me or show me my list of what I need to do. I have to know and initiate and go into it. I need a lot of executive functioning to use my electronics. So even if you find that's useful for you, please listen carefully to Herb and go to the notes. Go to writing things down that can remain in front of you. Thank you.
Even if we are using the note section of our smartphone or we're using the calendar, we have to remember that we need to look at that, because out of sight, out of mind, out of sight, out of mind, in sight, in mind, okay? So I definitely believe that we want to write appointments and classes and social activities on a weekly or monthly calendar. I believe in having a calendar, and I believe in having a week at a glance, okay? And I want to look at that every single day. I want to know it, look at it the night before, so I know what I need to do and what time I need to get up in the morning. And then I also want to be able to look at it that in the beginning of the day, so I can know when I'm going to start and what I need to do, okay? And I want to have a realistic amount of time between those tasks. Can I try and do 4 things in an hour? Absolutely not. Can I really focus on accomplishing 1 thing in the morning? Yes. Can I then possibly add 2? Yes. And I will then see at what level was I successful, then can I add on top of that. I don't want to start with so much that I get frustrated and just don't even try. Okay, start simple. And if there is a task that I want to do that is complicated and has a lot of steps, I'm going to use a checklist. I'm going to develop a checklist. I'll have the people around me in my life help me develop a checklist so that I can use that checklist every single time I'm doing the task and check off after every single step so I can remember that I did that. Okay. Now, this happens a lot when we're taking medication. If some of you are taking 2 or 3 different kinds of pills, we want to have a checklist every single time that we take those pills so that when we put it in our mouth, we know we've done it. We've taken that pill. That may seem like overkill, but many of you know that is something like, wait, did I take this or not? Wait, I can see I just checked it off. And if you can routinely start to do that, where you are using a system to help yourself remember, then you're going to make fewer errors, like taking the wrong amount of medication. Okay, I believe in having a binder in which you can have all, we're going to talk about this, the categories of your life. If I have medical appointments and I go see Dr. So-and-so, I have a section for Dr. So-and-so, and here's my list of the things that Dr. So-and-so has told me and the things that I want to tell Dr. So-and-so. I want to be able to remember what I did in terms of my garden. What did I plant? What was I going to do next? I want to know the same thing for my groceries. What do I want to do in terms of that? Every single category can have a section, and I can use that section to remember what was I thinking about that the last time I was thinking about that category, and use that as a reference. If we are going to the doctor, we would, before that appointment, write down our questions, write down what we want to accomplish with that person, and then we're going to have those notes and bring those notes to that appointment. And then we're going to have the date of that appointment on there. That's very important. Otherwise, like when was the last time I wrote this note? What was this note for? Write the date every single time you're writing something down, okay? Then you want to be able to know what that professional person or whoever that was, what they said. If you can't write notes, if you can't summarize what that person is talking about, possibly because that person is talking too fast, you can ask that person to write down the answers to your questions and provide them to you so that you will have that information in your hands so that you'll know what to do. That relates to what I was talking about before with using some assertive listening strategies. Very often, people will talk perhaps as fast as I'm talking right now, which might be too fast for you to remember everything. You then say, wait, can you slow down a minute? Okay, what was the first thing you wanted me to do? What was the second thing, right? You can slow down the information coming in so that you can make sure you caught it. You can assert yourself with that person so that they are providing the information at the level that you can process it. Okay. You want to look over the notes that you had with that, what you wrote with that person or the person wrote to you or for you to make sure you understood it. And then, so you're clarifying everything before you leave, right? How many times do we go to an appointment and it's like, wait, what did he say? What did she say? What was it I was supposed to do? If I have it in my hand and I know I understood it, then I'm good. I don't want to leave without really knowing, okay? This is the same kind of thing that we can do if we're having a conversation with a loved one, with a family member. What is it that my son, what's the conversation that I want to have with my son? When I called him, I wanted to talk about this, and I want to talk about this, and I want to talk about this. Did I go over those subjects? What did he say? So that the next time I talk to him, I will be able to say, oh yeah, I remember we talked about that. if you have a section in your binder that is for, in this case, for your son, your family member, you can remember date by date what it is that you said to that person. If in fact you can't remember what you said, which is a problem. But if you use your paper brain, you would have those notes. You look at those notes before you have that conversation again, and it's like you remember what that person said. That would be a very, very useful, I think it's a very, very useful strategy. So another section, another cognitive skill section that we think about is organization. So I have this from the olden days where we had to have our keys in our wallet nearby. Right now, our keys in our wallet stay where they are and we rarely go and use them unless we're driving somewhere, but you don't have to do that as much. But I know where my keys are, they're in one place. I know where my wallet is, it's in one place. I want to know where my bills are. I want to know where my tools are, where my medicine is. They are staying in the same exact place, so I don't have to spend an hour looking for them. That is a waste of time. As much as possible, I want to have a designated place for the things I need to find every day. Okay, I might want to have a label on some drawers or cabinets to remind me, because again, out of sight, out of mind. I want to know where are those things if I can't remember each time I'm looking for them, okay? And I want to put things back in those designated locations. That requires that we do less and expect ourselves to not be rushed, so that we can take that time to put things back and get them ready for the next time we're going to need them.
Can I add something here?
Of course.
Thank you. I think one of the most important aspects of these cognitive strategies is that our goal is for increasing independence. You could have a family member, a friend, a caregiver, put your keys or your wallet or, your medicine in a certain place. And that may be the level that you're at right now, and that's fine. And thank goodness there are people who can help. If you can move a step at a time towards increasing your independence by following strategies deliberately and consistently, you're going to feel a good sense of accomplishment, confidence, and pride to take on the next challenge. So basically, these are ways to help you gain your independence step by step by step.
Another thing where that if we have a lot of papers and we have a lot of things we want to keep track of, then to whatever degree we're able to, we can have files for these things, and that we'll know what is that category of information. We're going to name it. I like to put yellow stickies on tops of these so that I can actually just say, oh, I have that's why I'm going to label it that way, and I'll put the papers in there, and I will find them again later when I need them. Okay, if I'm going to the doctor, if I don't have the related papers in the binder in which I have those notes, I'll find them in a file folder. I want them somewhere so that I can access them, and I will take the time once a week or more frequently to make sure that I'm not having all these papers disorganized. And I want to be able to do things the same way. I want to make things a routine, okay? And like Joanne said before, the old way might have been that the old me might have been like, I'm just going to do whatever I want, and I'm just going to bounce around, okay? And I'll be able to get it all done. The new me may not be able to function as well if we don't try and routinize things, try and do them the same exact way and consciously think about what we're doing and how we're doing it, and be deliberate and by talking yourself through with each step. That is another strategy where if we're talking to ourselves, it doesn't mean that we're crazy. It means that we are really trying to guide ourselves. And if we hear ourselves, we are using a different part of our brain. We're talking, using a different part of our brain. We're hearing, using a different part of our brain, and that will hopefully connect more to our frontal lobe. We're using more of our brain for each and every activity so that it becomes, we are selectively attending to it more and more, using all of our brain power. This is something that's in the handout. This is called Categories of My Life, which I mentioned before, and we can think about what are those categories of your life. And when I'm thinking about what I want to accomplish each day, each week, and what I want to have sections in a binder for or files for are these things. So I recommend that you think about what is it that you need to do each day for your personal care. What is it each day or each week or each month that you have to do in terms of medicine and doctor's appointments? So you can jot down who are my doctors now? What is the medicine, okay? And then we can think about any other appointments. Do we have physical therapy? Do we have any kind of exercises? Do we have any classes on Zoom these days? Do I have my own workouts and exercises that have already been given to me to do? Can I make sure that I do them? If I have them written out to do them, it's more likely that they will be done. I will use these things to do to build my weekly schedule. Same thing with meals and shopping and cooking. I want to organize that and break down those steps so that I make sure I have the food and it's ordered prior to the time when I want to be eating. Okay, there are house chores. Who's doing the laundry? When do I need to do the laundry? When do I need to clean? That kind of thing. And if we have pets, do I have the pet on my schedule too? When am I going to feed Squiffy? When am I going to do all those things? Yard chores, financial banking, similarly, we want to do that. When do I pay my bills? Where are my bills? And do I have pay bills on my weekly schedule or my calendar? If I'm doing any kind of work, that is another whole area for things that might be appointments, meetings, things to do. Same thing with hobbies and creative pursuits. Okay, what is it that I'm doing? What are my avocations? Am I doing some of that too, so that I have a balanced life? I want to include my relationships. I want to include anyone in my family, my friends, any groups, I want to keep track of birthdays and social events and that kind of thing. I want a list of that so that I can be on top of that. If this is all, I want to be able to work with one person or two or three. I want to be able to be successful with a greater number of these kinds of relationships, okay? But this is one way so that we can start to keep track of this. And there may be there may be spirituality or other kind of rituals that you want to remember to do, okay? So if we have that kind of list, we can then use the categories of your life, all those, and your monthly calendar and your weekly schedule to actually get things done, okay? So that requires sitting down, having these things in one place in your house so that you know that is the place where all of your paper brain stuff is, that you can then look at it. It's all there. Anything relevant for you to plan your day and your week is right there. So you don't have to waste time looking for it. It's all going to go back there if any of those, if the binder or the folders go away, they have to come back there. We decide what the categories are that are relevant. We then take a few minutes to brainstorm the things that we need to do in each category, okay? Some of them are going to be daily things. Some of them are going to be things that happen only once a week. Okay, we want to decide what are the things that are on the A list. What are the most important things to be done, okay? And then we want to put them on the weekly schedule. When are they exactly going to be done? So it may be that, like we said before, we may try and cram in too many things. We say, uh-oh, this isn't working. I need to spread this out more, and I need to do this thing at 9 o'clock and this thing at 10:30 and this thing at whatever time we realize would be a good time with a good time interval between, okay? There are also some things that may not be the most important. We can still keep them on our list so they don't completely go out of our mind. They are still there. They may be the things that we want to do sometime this month. Those are things that could be on our B list or on our C list. Those are not the things that we're focusing on now. Another thing we have to be doing in terms of our executive functioning as the boss is, what is it we need to do that's most important? I can say it just like that. What is the most important thing I need to do today? Let me see, where's my list? Okay, oh yeah, this, and I'm going to then do that thing, okay? Every week, every weekend probably, we will look and see, how did we do this week, right? Oh, wait, I'm sorry. After I do each thing, I'm going to cross it off. I want to make sure that I cross it off. I didn't mention that yet, but when it's done, I want to be able to cross it off. I'm going to say that again because it's really important. And then I want to write down in that weekend meeting with myself or with my family member or someone who's helping me, I want to be able to review my past week, see what needs to be carried over into my next week, and plan out my week. That is how I can be organized. That is how I can remember what I need to do. And that is how I can initiate doing the things that I want to do and feel good about what I'm able to accomplish. Joanne had mentioned that we may want to have alarms, right? We may want to, well, we probably do want to have an alarm. We want to have something that will say, wait, I've just been sitting here. And then my alarm goes off and say, oh yeah, let me go look at my list and see if there's something for me to do right now, something that I wanted to do. Oh yeah, I need to do this right now, right? If I do that every 30 minutes, if I do that every hour, whatever is realistic for you, depending upon how many things you're planning on doing each for that day, that alarm will remind you. We have so many of those things available now on a watch or on a smartphone to be able to have an alarm that can get us going to know what we need to do next. Again, I want to use my paper brain or say, I'm going to go to my memos or I'm going to go to my calendar, whatever is the place, the one place that you're going to put all of that information. Okay, here we go.
And an alarm example, we were talking with our daughter who's 31 yesterday, and all of a sudden something went and it was her alarm because she's on a medication that she just started and she has to take it at certain times. So certainly, I'm sure many of you are already using your alarms for those kinds of things. And we got to see one in action or hear one in action yesterday.
So like I said before, we want to reward ourselves for finishing the task by crossing them off with your favorite color highlighter. Okay, so I've been enjoying myself doing that. So yay, I actually did this. And that's really a great visual thing. So you can see clearly what it is that you did accomplish and what is it on that paper that you still need to do next. And the more and more you're able to accomplish things, the more things are crossed off each day, and you can feel good about that. If there also are some things that are not crossed off, those are the things that didn't get done. And hopefully we can do those same things and transfer those things to the next day, okay?
The other thing about the things that are left on the list, and I could give you many examples of my own paper brain, is just because you didn't get to them all doesn't mean that you did something wrong necessarily, but a little time to go back to that self-monitoring, self-reflection, and notice, why didn't I get to that? Oh, it was really a B item. It wasn't really my A list item. I was afraid to make that phone call because I'm afraid that I'm not going to be clear on the phone or something like that. There may be reasons if you think about it, and then perhaps what you will want to do is think of the sequence. Are there smaller steps you can take towards accomplishing that goal instead of it being just one giant thing that scares you or is just too big to make you feel like you can even handle it?
So going along with that, if we find we cannot accomplish all the things we thought that we could accomplish, it might be that we want to put fewer things on that day's schedule. It might be that we thought we could do 5 things and we realize that we can't, okay? So, but if we do 2 things or 3 things, we can do them well. And that is important, okay? Perhaps we need to give ourselves more time to get something done. That is something that we learn when it's the old me versus the new me. We realize, the new me takes longer. The new me needs more things to be visual. The new me needs fewer distractions. The new me needs whatever the new me needs, okay? So we learn what that might be. Now, we might also have another section of our binder, which is our own thoughts about our own thoughts, okay? Like a diary, so that you can remember, what are those strategies that work for me? Okay, what did work, what didn't, okay? So we can keep track of some of that, even some of that self-monitoring that we're thinking about, okay? We may want to ask for some help. The old me could do everything independently, all by his or her itself, themselves. Now I need some help. Could you please help me do this? And we can say those words and it's okay, okay? Like Joanne said though, we do want to be able to see if there are some things that we can do independently. What are those things that we can do independently? What are those things that we can do with some help? What are those things that we can't do by ourselves at all? I am not doing anything electrical, okay? Someone else is doing that. Please help me, okay? However, if I am going to be changing a light bulb, I may want Joanne to help me. If it's a high light bulb, I want her to hold the ladder. Okay? So there are different levels of things, and I need to be aware of that for my own safety, and I need to be aware of that to actually get things done. I'm not doing anything electrical. If I start to, please tell me, don't do that. You're not good at that, okay?
One more thing on asking for help. Help might not be having somebody do the task for you. It may be helping you look over those things that didn't get crossed out on your list. Hey, can you help me figure out why I didn't get to this? Can you help me figure out how I can get this done later this week? Can you help me schedule so that you're still on that independent move, but you're using the people who care about you, who can support you, to help you analyze and break down tasks if that is the overwhelming part for you.
So that brings up those words that we mentioned in the beginning, insight. We might want to borrow someone else's insight so that we get their opinion, like Joanne said, on how could this be done better? How could I have done this better? And also the person who's helping you can say, hey, what about looking at your list? What did you want to accomplish right now? Let's look at your list, okay? Oh, there was something maybe you want to remember to do that. Would that be a good thing to put down on your list of things to do, okay? So we have that kind of team interaction with the people that are on our team that want us to be successful. So it may also be that we want to do some things in a different order, so that helper person say, well, maybe if we do this instead of this step, instead of that step, let's try that. Let's try that. Now, I'm also saying, let's try that instead of you did this wrong, right? That's so important for us not to be me versus you. We are on a team, and I talk about this a lot with all the things that all the people that I work with, that we are a team and we want to accomplish this together, okay? Another idea is to pace yourself. We don't want to use too much energy at one time and drain yourself down to nothing. A lot of us we'll work on something and work on something and work on something and work on something until we are just fried, okay? So we need to be aware that we are starting to spin on this. It's not working, it's not working. So I'm gonna stop, I'm gonna breathe, I'm gonna say, let's see. I'm gonna take that break, and then I'm going to see, maybe I'm gonna go slower. Maybe I'm gonna do a smaller portion of this. These are the kinds of things that I'm gonna have a conversation with myself about so that I can accomplish the task and not get my brain squeezed like or filled like that sponge, and I'm going to want to release it so that I can think as clearly as possible again. Another important point is to be patient with yourself, okay? Why can't I get all this stuff done by tomorrow? Well, I think that's not how things work in life anyway, okay? We figure out what our goal is, and we move step by step by step to achieve that goal. That is how it works. And the more we are patient with ourselves and say, you know what, I'm going to really take my time to do this, and I'm going to say, yay, I did this one thing, I accomplished this one thing, and I'm going to let myself improve over time. With practice, we'll have systems that will work for a lifetime. That is all of the exciting information that we want to share with you. And now I believe we can open up to questions. I do want to just share again, if you did not have the website, this was the link. Can you see this?
Yes.
Good. This is the link again for the handout that will go with this presentation. This will go to the blog page of our website, and on the bottom, and you'll see there will be a link for the PDF for the handout that you can have. The other thing that we talked about is, if you're interested in the Strategy Power book that I have written, and that Kurt has multiple copies of, and I have more, you can ask for that as well.
Wow, thank you so much. Appreciate your expertise. Herb, I don't know if you know this, I may have said this when we met before, but I call you like the inventor. I mean, you have created so many different systems and strategies, and some of those are compiled in information you presented today. Some of those are compiled in your book. I hope you don't mind that, but I'm just blown away by, you know, your ability to create things. And a couple of things that stood out to me is you know, we talk a lot in our community about, you know, adapting to the new me, and you know, often, you know, the old me versus the new me, and often folks, you know, particularly, you know, kind of soon after an injury or brain injury, you know, maybe really, you know, itching to get back to doing all the things that they used to do, and trying to live their life the same way they always did, and experiencing enormous frustration in that regard, and even sadness and grief, right? You know, and so there's that process, and there's some, I think, grieving involved in that process, in sort of adapting and accepting that things are different now. And, you know, so we talk a lot about that, and I appreciate you bringing that up. The other thing is, you know, the idea of you know, needing to, you know, develop systems and strategies. So really, you know, being focused on that and diligent about, you know, creating systems and strategies that work for you. And the same thing doesn't work for everybody, right? And so, you know, that's where, you know, your idea of, you know, creating systems and your expertise in that regard, you know, just encouraging folks that there's no one size fits all. And so, you know, I appreciate that. And, you know, I'm gonna steal a term from y'all that I have not heard anybody use before, which is something you all maybe know what I'm gonna say. Paper brain. You both said that many times, and you know, my takeaway there is really encouraging people, you know, to write lists, to you know, to check things off. And Joanne, you were even talking about kind of this system of like grading sort of the importance of things, or the priority of certain things. So, you know, I love that. And so those were some of the things that I just wrote down that really resonated with me. So, you know, we can open this up. Oh, go, Herb, did you have something to say?
Let me just
I do too.
respond. Let me respond to what you said in terms of thinking about the old me. And this is what I've said to many of my clients. And this is what I also say to myself as I move along in my life, right? When I'm no longer a teenager and I'm no longer whatever age I was, and I wasn't able to do what I used to do. So I've had a lot of people who I've worked with who have had jobs that they no longer can do, okay? It does not mean that we did not do that job. It's like we wore a wonderful hat, right? And then we take that wonderful hat and we put that wonderful hat on the shelf, and we can look at that wonderful hat. Look what I did. Look what I was able to wear. Look what I was able to accomplish. This is what we do in life anyway. We don't live forever. We accomplish things and we say, yes, we did that and we did that. And now I'm going to work on a new hat, and I'm going to work on accomplishing this. Okay, so yes, we can be sad about that we're not wearing that hat anymore, that we're not doing that thing anymore, but we still can acknowledge that it was a beautiful thing and we did do it. And now we can focus on this. So that is just a way to be able to deal with mourning for something that is we're not going to have anymore. You know, so there's lots of things physically that we may not be able to do. We may not be able to do in terms of interacting, whatever happens to be. We have those accomplishments, we put them on the shelf, and we can have some memories of them, but we also have what are we doing today?
I'd like to address something that Kurt said and integrate that integration with something we were talking about too. You were just talking about how people who are early in their brain injury recovery survivorship journey are dealing with so much of the loss and so many challenges. So I'd like to suggest taking that concept of the categories of my life, which can help us balance so that we don't get too one-sided in what we're doing, and apply that to some of the rehab areas that someone needs to work on. Here's my legs, here's my arms, here's my cognitive rehab, here's play and recreation, here's my relationships. There may be a different set of categories that if we think of it in pieces, we can balance out our attention to different things we need to accomplish, different activities we need to accomplish in our goals. So, and then over time, perhaps some of that fades away as we accomplish those goals, and then we add some other categories, maybe volunteer work or something down the line much further. So thanks for bringing that up, because it helps me apply what we're talking about to different phases of brain injury recovery, which is important because obviously not everybody's at the same level at all.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for spending some time with us this morning.
Thank you for having us.
All right. You'll have a great rest of your day. And again, this recording will be posted on our YouTube channel early next week, the SDBIF. And I'll make sure that Herb and Joanne, you have a copy of that as well. Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.